Welcome to Fireside Chats. My name is Brad, and I'm glad you're joining us today. During these challenging times, I want to be able to bring conversations to you that are meaningful, helpful, to inspire you and encourage you in the days ahead. Today, I'm excited for the conversation I'm going to have, and I want to encourage you, if you don't mind, take a couple of moments and share this video on Facebook or YouTube or wherever you might be watching this with your friends so they can be benefited by the content. Today, my friend Lana Sullivan is joining me. I've known Lana for almost 10 years now. She was one of my first interns at a previous church where I served as a pastor. And so when I knew her, she was coaching college softball, just getting started in married life, either engaged or just married. I don't remember, but nevertheless, Lana, welcome. Glad to have you on Fireside Chats today.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So do me a favor, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, and so our viewers can know a little bit more about your story.
Yeah, so my name is Lana Sullivan, and I am married to Matt Sullivan. We've been married for almost 8 years, and we have 3 kids, Eli, Luke, and Nola, and they're 5, 3, and 1, and we've been at fellowship since December.
Awesome. Well, it's been a joy to know your family, see you guys grow over the years. And so here's what I want us to do. I want us to take a trip back in time. And so 15 years ago, where would you be, Lana, 15 years ago?
Oh, man. Okay. I would be in the middle of high school.
All right. So you're in high school. I am not in high school. I am already out of college in a job. That's okay. But 15 years ago is the year 2005. The iPhone has not yet been invented. And really, the world is significantly different than what we experience today. It's hard to even calculate how much technology has changed in the last decade and a half and how immersed we are with it now. But if you could go back in time to 2005, you might have had a BlackBerry, which was basically a phone, an email device, and a calendar. But for the most part, our lives were not displayed on the internet for everyone to see, to critique, to compare. But that's certainly changed today. And with every technology advancement, with really every human advancement, there's almost always some sort of counterfeit consequence. And one of the things that we've seen over the last several years is as our lives are lived out digitally more and more, now they're almost required to because of quarantining and sheltering at home during COVID-19 crisis. There's been some negative spiritual, emotional, and mental consequences to people's lives being lived out on the internet. Now, Lana, you, like I said, you were in high school. You're probably just graduating high school, maybe beginning college when the iPhone hits the market, and your early adulthood, your emergence into adulthood really was happening simultaneously as culture and technology shifted rapidly. What was that like for you? What have you observed in light of this?
Well, I mean, when I started, I guess when I was about 15 or 16 years old, I had a Nokia and didn't have a BlackBerry, and I might have gotten on AOL Messenger in the evenings, chatting with my friends. But, really we didn't have Facebook. It really wasn't until college that we had Facebook. And even then, I really wasn't into sharing my life with everybody online. I mean, I was then especially a very private person. And even when I met Matt, he would share things about us dating or being engaged on Facebook, and I was just mortified. I was like, the whole world doesn't need to know that because, clearly the whole world was following me on Facebook. But I was almost embarrassed by the oversharing that I thought was happening on the internet. And so, I haven't really been into it, but I have just noticed that people share more and more and more. And even I've seen that happen in my life where I'm willing to share more and more and more. So it has been like a super interesting phenomenon. But for me, like 2 years ago, we were getting out of debt. My iPhone broke and $1,000 for a phone, and I got a flip phone. And I was using a flip phone for like 7 months. until, you know, I started to kind of pivot and feel the call into Girl Teach Me. And then I went back to an iPhone. So that's kind of my story with social media stuff. But I definitely think the lure to compare has just been heightened to new levels we've never experienced before. And I think that technology is a tool, but it can be used for good and for bad. And so I think just understanding that it's not always bad.
Absolutely.
Really important.
Well, one of the things that we've seen is in light of this, like just how it's affecting us mentally and emotionally, like you said, comparisons become a bigger thing, particularly, you know, you see someone's best 15 seconds on Instagram or on
Yes.
Facebook, you compare it to the worst parts of your day, and it creates a fictional narrative that's not true.
Mm.
As a father to a daughter who's emerging from kind of adolescence into preteen stage, you know, she's not in that world yet. We've got some pretty hard, fast restrictions on what social media looks like, but it's coming soon. And I'm aware of how everyone in culture, but particularly young women, are prone to compare themselves physically, life status, economically, whatever it is with what's going on. You began to see that and maybe saw an unhealthy comparison that led women to want to compete with each other.
Yes. Well, I think I think women have always been competing with one another. I think that's part of the fall. And I just think women feel that in their souls, kind of that mantra that women don't get ready for men, they get ready for other women. Like when they get ready to go out somewhere, they're thinking about, well, what are other women going to wear? And you might call each other, hey, what are you wearing to this wedding? Like women are just always so conscious to be measuring themselves by other women. And I think it's so unhealthy and it's exacerbated by social media. So yeah, it's something I feel super passionate standing against and hopefully helping to turn the tides on that a little bit.
Yes, out of your own experiences, what what you were observing, you've kind of felt this sense to help women instead of competing with one another, learn
Right.
from one another, grow with one another, and be
Right.
encouraged by one another. And that led to you launching Girl Teach Me. So take just a second, explain to us what Girl Teach Me is and how you got started with it.
Yeah, so it kind of comes from the saying, like, hey, girl, teach me how to do this, or teach me how to do that. You make really good cinnamon rolls. Girl, teach me how to make your cinnamon rolls. So that's kind of where the name for it came from. But it really came out of my love for Titus 2, where older women are to teach the younger women. And what I saw happening in our culture is a disconnect between older women and younger women. It might be that the older women feel like, hey, those younger girls don't seem to really want to spend time with me. They don't think I have anything to offer. That might be the lie that they're believing. And the lie that a younger woman is believing is that she's really busy. I'm too nervous to ask to spend time with her, because we're not living in a village culture. Oftentimes we're not living with our grandma. So we're really kind of left alone on these major life events of getting married and having babies to ourselves to learn from social media, YouTube. We don't have that natural mentoring happening. And so, yeah, so with Girl Teach Me, I just wanted to create a space where, one, I was encouraging women to learn how to get in the Word and read it for themselves. And also, two, to find a mentor, to find a discipling, to be discipling and to be discipled. That was the second thing. And the third thing was, okay, as women, we do a ton of things that we didn't learn in school. We've spent 8 hours a day at school, but now I'm at home with children and I need to know how to cook food, keep this house running. And then, you know, maybe I want a little side business on the side. There's just so much that women do that we had very little training on. So to provide some practical nuggets of wisdom for them.
Yeah, that's really good. Two things that I take away from that is, one, I don't think it's actually gender specific. There is way too much generational isolation. We have, you know, kind of isolated ourselves in a peer group, and it's particularly challenging for young adults, I think, because you are grouped by your peers. You know, you're in first grade with other first graders all the way
Right.
through college, and then all of a sudden you graduate from college, you enter into the workforce or whatever it might be, and all of a sudden the demographic goes from everyone almost being exactly like you to broad. And so that creates a stumbling block. But we've set up some kind of false narratives about the older generation, the younger generation. And so we're not learning from one another. And then you're right, there is so much about life that we don't necessarily learn naturally anymore, particularly as nuclear families and extended families aren't together, the shared experiences, there's breakdowns in the house. And so there's so much to learn. So I love what you've inspired here. And one of the kind of keystone maxims you have for Girl Teach Me is this: what is ordinary to you is extraordinary to someone else. Talk about what you mean by that.
Yeah. So when an older woman is kind of thinking about, well, what would I even talk with a younger girl about? I think she needs to start with her ordinary, because that is absolutely extraordinary to somebody else. The fact that she knows how to cook 10 different meals. I mean, when I got married, I didn't know how to cook anything. So when I went, it's so true. When I went and spent time with older women, I remember a ministry I was a part of at a church was this older woman had younger women in her house, and she laid out a recipe and we all made it together. I mean, that was her ordinary. She had been making that meal for years, and yet she taught other women. And so that was so beautiful and extraordinary to me. And I still have some of those recipes in my recipe book. And so I just think, if it's a man and he knows how to work on cars, well, that's extraordinary to a younger man who wants to learn how to take care of his truck. And so just thinking about, what are you naturally, you've spent a lot of time doing, you're naturally good at, start there, start teaching that. And maybe that's the connector for you to get to know that younger woman, that younger man. And then, you start to talk about life and, hey, do you even know how to read your Bible? Like, hey, let's get together and let's do that. I mean, but start with your ordinary, because a lot of people don't know how to do that.
Yeah, I love that. And one of the things I think you're tapping into here is people have more to offer than they realize.
Yeah.
We don't realize that our ordinary might be extraordinary to someone else, that what comes natural to us, what's normal to us, someone else has an experience, and it's something that we have in our proverbial cup that we can empty out and pour into someone else. But one of the things I think that might trip people up is you referenced the fall, kind of a theological, spiritual term for how sin entered the world and has kind of fractured what God intended and has left us with this alternate reality that we're living in, but wasn't the design, is that jealousy or insecurity can really inhibit us from both learning from someone else or offering what we have. How have you maybe dealt with that in your own life, seen other people deal with maybe the jealousy of what they see in others, but also the insecurity to maybe that would hinder you from kind of boldly yet humbly offering what God has given you to the world?
That's such a good question. I think I still struggle with it. I think that we're all struggling with it if we're being honest at one point or another. And I think a reason for that is we go through spiritual seasons where, maybe you're in a spiritual winter and you feel really dry and you don't have a lot to add to the highlight reel. Things are just hard. But then you get on Instagram and you see somebody else's spiritual summer. How can you compare to that? We all move through different seasons. And so I think it's being really intentional to not scroll through Instagram unless you're going to add to the conversation. Because I think if you're just consuming, of course, you are just consuming someone else's highlights. But I think that if you're contributing either to teach or to inspire, encourage, share what the Lord's kind of downloading into your life, it's social media because it's meant to be social. It's not meant to just be consumed. And I think that just consumer mentality, I don't really personally see how that can be extra beneficial to our lives if we're consuming in large quantities without processing with other people too. So
that's good. You're supposed to give back. I heard a wise person once say that in regards to social media or the internet, that what we see there is a billboard, not a diary. And to keep that in mind. So you are seeing someone else's summertime sometimes in your winter, and you got to reframe that and have a better position. But one of the things I think that we maybe miss, and I don't hear this talked a lot in churches or in small groups, particularly in our theological tribe, is the fact that we were created in the image of God. God has crafted us. He's wired us uniquely. He's given each of us different spiritual gifts, but he's also given us different talents and abilities. And that is a glorious thing inside of us. Like, that is a good gift. And if we understand that that came from God, it was given to us as a gift. It's not something that we necessarily strapped our boots on and made. We might have cultivated it. We might have worked hard. We might have practiced at something. But ultimately, kind of our formation, our early childhood experiences, our family, our natural gifts can come to us as a gift. When we understand those are from God, then we are free to offer what's glorious in us to someone else. And so that's one of the things you're trying to do with Girl Teach Me. Why don't you maybe just take just a moment and share a little bit about what people might find on the Girl Teach Me website or on the Instagram feed? What are some of the ordinary that other people have that are extraordinary to others that people can find there?
Yeah. So my goal with like kind of my big vision for Girl Teach Me is that it wouldn't be the Lana Sullivan show, but that, ultimately we could have a collective of women coming and sharing what they're good at. And so that's kind of my long-term goal, is to bring more women in. So what you would find there is we did something January through June where we were journaling through John. We were writing out the book of John in a journal and just writing out the word. So really trying to help women. Let's get in the word, because that's going to transform you. The word never returns void. So that was my first goal, get women in the word. So my second thing that we've got on there is just nudges to mentor. So I had a young girl share her story of being mentored. She's 17 and what that's meant to her. So just for older women to see, like, wow, I could have this impact in a younger woman's life if I just ask the Lord who's naturally around me, and they might want to spend time with me. We've got laundry guides on how to do your laundry, how to get stains out, because you're going to be doing laundry until you go home to glory, or you're too crazy to do it.
I think you even have a man's guide to the laundry on there.
We have a man's guide to laundry, because, if you're going to ask your husband to go switch laundry, you really don't want him setting those baby food stains into the dresses and stuff. So just little things like
Super
that.
wise.
Yeah. So the Bible, mentoring, and then just practical stuff for women's day to day.
Yeah, everyday life. Love it. So, Lana, a lot of people might not know this. In your younger years, you were competitive in athletics. You played softball, pitched in college, even coached in college. And so I want you to kind of speak to one other area. You, once upon a time, you were, 20s, pitching in college, and you were kind of experiencing life as a young adult and all the struggles and challenges that come with that. And you've kind of grown, and while you're still obviously young and you've got young kids, you've kind of moved out of that college, right after college stage. And you probably have some good advice and wisdom for those who might be there. So any young adults who are watching this, man, what word of wisdom would you give to them as they're navigating life right now?
Yeah, man, you're at such a sweet point right now. I think that what I would say is experience is your $1 million paycheck. You need to find somebody that you really want to learn from, and you need to apprentice them, whether that's in life or that's in your profession. Just because you may have gone through college doesn't mean that you've arrived. In fact, it might mean that you're still at the beginning. So humble yourself and get experience. Learn from somebody and understand that the payoff might come in a little while, and you may not see what's happening, but you've got a lot of reps you've got to get in. I mean, we're not going to get good at anything without a ton of reps. I didn't get good at pitching by throwing for 5 minutes in the yard. No, I threw every day for an hour. And so if you want to be good at your career, you're going to have a lot of reps, and have respect for the people in your career field who've had a lot of reps and have been there. Humble yourself and ask for help, because I think why millennials get a bad rap sometimes is they want to be a part of something that matters, but they kind of show up and sometimes, we act like we know it all. We need to humble ourselves and be sponges. Nobody wants to pour into a full cup. So empty yourself and say, I am ready to learn. And I promise you, in 10 years, you will just probably be stellar at your career, because you were okay with getting the reps in and knowing that the payoff would come later. So that's what I would say is experience is your $1 million paycheck.
Man, that's so good. What I hear you saying is good leaders are good learners, and be teachable, which makes sense that would be your heart since you've developed Girl Teach Me, all about learning life, discipleship, mentorship, practical skills. Lana, thanks so much for joining me today. Before we sign off, how can people connect with Girl Teach Me online and through different social avenues?
Yeah, so we're on Instagram at Girl Teach Me, and my personal is Lana Sullivan. I just share my family on there, so you might want to skip that, but it's fun too. And then on YouTube, just at Girl Teach Me, that's where I've got all of my journaling through John videos. So I did a video for every chapter of John, kind of breaking it down and giving my thoughts. Like if you were in a group with me, that would be my takeaway from that chapter. And I don't do Facebook a lot, even though we're doing Facebook right now. So mainly Instagram.
All right. Thank you, Lana, so much for being a part of this. Man, check her out and Girl Teach Me online, on Instagram, and on YouTube. Hey, thanks so much for being a part of Fireside Chats with Brad. Again, if this has been helpful, inspiring, and encouraging to you, would you share it with your friends? Until I see you again, take care.